Okay, there's been a lot of frustrating aspects to do with Celtic this season. One of them has been youth development. We've touched on it on the channel before, but don't pause, don't turn off, because we've got it again today, but we've got a different angle for you today. I want to chat a little bit how Celtic could perhaps come into the present day with youth development, copy some of the things that have gone on around Europe in recent years, and how we could really up our game in this department. Fans always want to see young players coming through the academy and making their name for the club. That's why Kieran Tierney, Aidan McGeady and James Forrest to a lesser extent are all revered by the Celtic support. But the truth is that in the last few years we haven't had many players doing so. You look at this season and yes, there's been a couple of notable exceptions. Connor Hazard and Stephen Welsh have made their way into the first team. Although without taking too much away from those two, I would argue that perhaps their opportunities were as a result of circumstances, i.e. injuries and players not playing well, as opposed to them getting to the stage when their development where the manager couldn't really afford not to play them. Other youngsters like Karamoko Dembele look set to be leaving the club. Cameron Harper will leave the club at the end of the season. Armstrong Okoflex, I think there's big question marks there about his development as well. And even slightly more experienced members of the youth squad or now the first team squad like Mikey Johnson, Anthony Ralston and Scott Robertson have had little, if not no, opportunities for the first team this season. So how does Celtic improve this part of the club? We know Dominic Mackay is going to come into the club in a matter of months. We hope he's got some new ideas. In case he doesn't, I thought we could spell out a few potential scenarios here. Chat about colt teams playing in the lower leagues of Scottish football is never really far away. In fact, if you've managed to get to this part of the season and not yet heard it mentioned, well, first of all, apologies for bursting your bubble, but also, secondly, well done, because it does seem to come up quite a lot, and I will freely admit that. Usually the chat is surrounding Celtic's colt teams and a colt team of a team across the city. It's always kind of been felt that the chosen league would be League 2, the lowest tier of the SPFL. However, in recent years it's also been mooted the potential of them playing in the Lowland League. But now there seems to be a third option, and from the outside it seems like the most attractive one. It's been led by East Kilbride, who are currently one of the high flyers in the Lowland League. They're one of the teams that are really aspiring to get out of the Lowland League into the SPFL, and probably even further than that. They want to be playing in the Championship or even the top flight in the next decade or so. I don't speak for East Kilbride, but I would assume that's one of their goals. Add to that teams like Kelty Hearts and other sides in the Highland League. You've got a mix of teams there with real aspirations. Now, East Kilbride want to form a fifth tier of the SPFL, which it would probably make sense to call League 3, which would be directly under League 2. The plan would be to have 10 teams in this league and make the 10 teams up of aspiring teams in the Lowland League, aspiring teams in the Highland League, and then a bit of glitz and glamour with Celtic and Rangers colt teams. East Kilbride boss Stevie Aitken is clearly a fan of this idea. He was quoted earlier in the week as saying, "I think reconstruction to bring a new division in would do that. If you can bring teams up that meet the criteria and have the right facilities, teams could apply and we put the Colts in there." I think the idea of Celtic and Rangers Colts playing in the lower leagues of Scottish football is a pretty sound one. I think from a Celtic point of view, it would give us an opportunity to blood our young players at senior level and have them play against other adults, while also having the benefits of keeping them under the Lennoxtown roof, so to speak. From a wider Scottish football point of view, I'm not sure it's quite as positive a move as many would have you believe. Now, I know this is a Celtic channel, but I just want to put this idea out there. What gives us the divine right to have Colts teams in the lower leagues of Scottish football while other teams can't, the likes of Aberdeen, Hearts and Hibs? Again, just a question I'm putting out there. Do we deserve it because we are the biggest team in the country, or is that still not fair on other teams? This feeling that Celtic would have thousands of fans following the Colts teams around the country, I just don't think is true. There would probably be an initial novelty factor that would lead to enlarged crowds for these teams in the lower divisions, certainly higher crowds than you would see in the Lowland and the Highland leagues at present. But is it sustainable in the long term? I'm not quite so sure. The idea from Stevie Aitken that I do like is the chat about TV rights, and while I'm not expecting Sky Sports to ditch all their Premier League coverage and take on a new Scottish League 3, I do see the possibility of, say, someone like a BBC Alba picking up the rights to show Celtic and Rangers Colts matches. I think Celtic and Rangers fans, and probably general Scottish football fans, would be interested in seeing that. So there could be an opportunity there. But having lived in Germany for half a year, a country that is quite well known for their B and reserve teams playing in the lower leagues, I can confirm that it's not quite the buzz some people anticipate. Stuttgart, where I was living, have a first team that average around 50,000 fans every second week, so quite similar to Celtic. Their B team, who I went to see on a few occasions, were lucky if they had 500 fans there. So that's Germany, but what about something that I've found out about Austria that Celtic could perhaps use to their advantage? The chat is, I think the Scottish Sun reported recently that Celtic and Rangers could pay a combined £3 million to the lower league teams in Scottish football to effectively, air quotes here, Neil Lennon, buy their way into the lower leagues. Now, would that be possible? And even if they were offering that kind of money, which would undoubtedly be really positive for lower league teams in Scottish football, especially during a World Health pandemic, there would still probably be real reservations about allowing Celtic Colts and Rangers Colts into the lower leagues of Scottish football. So many questions would need to be answered. How would it work? Could they get promoted? If so, what level could they get promoted to? They obviously can't play in the Premiership. Could they get promoted to the Championship? Would it be a league below? Rules on other things about players being able to play for Celtic and Celtic Colts. There'd be so many things to iron out. But what if Celtic took matters into their own hands and followed an example led by Red Bull in Austria? Now, you will know that Red Bull own the currently most successful team in Austria, Red Bull Salzburg, but they also own a second tier side called Liefering. They took them over in 2012, and while Liefering are still very much their own standalone club, they are effectively Red Bull Salzburg's reserves. Liefering and Salzburg's relationship has been really positive in the last decade, to so much of an extent that Red Bull Salzburg actually won the UEFA Youth League in 2017. And having read up on this, it seems like one of the key reasons for an Austrian team winning a Europe-wide youth competition was that Salzburg's youth players already had experience of playing against men, fellow professionals, and they were too strong physically for other youth teams in that competition. So could Celtic take a leaf out that book and effectively buy a lower league SPFL team and use them as our youth team? I know this may sound completely outrageous, and Albion Rovers fans aren't going to like me for suggesting that their Coatbridge club could be the perfect vehicle for Celtic to make this change. But I'm just putting it out there as a Celtic fan, from a Celtic fan's point of view. Imagine we had a club in the lower leagues that we could loan players to, and I'm talking lots of players every season, give them an opportunity to play first team football and then return to Celtic and stake a place for a first team spot. This is impossible to do in Scotland at the moment, as the SPFL rules say that you can only loan a maximum of 4 players to one SPFL club. Now, there's a reason those rules are in place, because otherwise informal relationships would happen between the biggest clubs and most powerful clubs in Scotland and the lower league teams loaning players, etc. Dominic Mackay is going to be coming into the club, and I hope he's going to have lots of ideas, and I hope he's not afraid to think outside the box. Looking at his time at Scottish Rugby, that seems to be the case. From trying to be the home of Scottish football to hosting concerts and other events at Murrayfield, he clearly isn't adverse to thinking outside the box and coming up with new plans, and that's what Celtic need at the moment in this department. So I hope when he comes into the club, he's got loads of ideas. I hope he's keen to pursue the Coat idea or the feeder club idea for Celtic, because I really do believe that we would see real benefits as a result.